The garden wouldn't be the same without the buzzing of bees. We almost take it for granted and so often forget how our crops benefit from and oftentimes require insect pollination. There are solitary bees and hoverflies and a whole host of other pollinating insects in the wild. But there's one that we as gardeners can influence and benefit from the most. I'm Tanya from Lovely Greens, and if you've ever been curious about keeping honeybees, I'm going to run you through the basics and give you an introduction to mine. So first of all, what are the benefits of keeping honeybees? Why would you want to keep them in the first place? Well, I can tell you why I keep honeybees. First off, if you keep your colonies near your vegetable patch, you can increase yields. So their pollination of things like berries and fruit is phenomenal. Second of all, honeybees are threatened in the wild. They're threatened by disease and pesticides, the stresses of commercial beekeeping. They just don't exist in the wild in a lot of places. So keeping bees helps to continue that species and helps with the environment. Now, the third reason is a little bit selfish, but also practical: honey. Honeybees produce more honey than they actually need. And if you take the surplus, you get a second crop. It's a warm, calm day and perfect for visiting the bees. And at this time of the year, I need to visit them about once a week, and that's because it's swarming season. And part of my checks will be looking for queen cells to make sure that the colonies don't decide to create a new queen and fly off, basically. So here they are. I have two colonies. The white hive on the left is primrose, and the bluer one on the right is bluebell. And my bees are British blacks, so that means that they're smaller and a lot darker than the bees you might see in Australia or in North America. I'm gonna check bluebell first, and I'll start by just puffing a little bit of smoke in the entrance. And then I'll wait just a couple minutes, just so that they can react and start to calm down a bit inside the hive. Now, this is a national hive, a British national hive, and this is the most common hive that you'll find here in Britain and Isle of Man. And it's composed of a brood box, so this larger box down here at the bottom, and then on top of it there are smaller boxes called supers, and in the supers are where bees make honey, so the worker bees, and the brood box is where the queen bee lives, and that's where the baby bees are reared. They're separated by a queen excluder, so the queen can't get up to where the honey is produced. And that's really good because when you go to extract honey, it means that you don't kill any bees. I got started keeping honeybees 9 years ago. I took a beekeeping course first. It was over 6 weeks. And then I got a nucleus of bees shortly after that. And the nucleus is a queen bee and then a cluster of worker bees. And you use that to build a full colony within that year. And a full colony can get upwards of 80,000 bees in the summer. And in the winter, it dwindles down naturally to just about 10,000. When I open a hive, I'm looking for a few things. So first of all, is there honey? Are they storing honey? Are they making honey? Are they storing pollen? I'm just going to smoke these guys down so I can have a look at one of the frames here on top. Well, they're putting on some honey there. You can see it on the outer edges, so everything that's capped over in white is honey that they've capped, and the uncapped stuff in the center is honey that they're making right now. And they need to evaporate a bit more of the water out before they cap it and store it. So bees are master preservers. It's really important to inspect your colonies regularly. So this time of the year, once a week, as the seasons get a bit cooler, you go in a little bit less often, and in the winter you leave them alone for the most part. But you need to keep an eye on them to make sure that they're healthy and that they're laying and that there's nothing wrong with them. And that is why I do not support beginner beekeepers getting the flow hive. And I'm sure you've seen it before. It's the beehive that allows you to extract honey without opening the hive. What that also encourages is not opening the hive at all. And we're very fortunate here on the Isle of Man to not have the varroa mite, which is a bee parasite, and it's implicated in so many different diseases and disorders. But the rest of the world, aside from Australia, pretty much has it. And if you don't go in and check your bees regularly, they will die. And so the flow hive is not great for beginners. This is the last super before getting down into the brood area. And I'm going to lift it up and you're going to see a yellow screen, and that is the queen excluder. Some beekeepers don't use queen excluders, but I do. I think that they're more humane. It keeps the queen bee and all of the baby bees underneath. And so when the time comes to harvest the honey above, you don't kill any baby bees. You've got to be careful just to make sure that the queen isn't hanging out on the back side of this before you put it aside. The area that I allow my queen bee to roam around in and lay eggs in is bigger than a lot of other beekeepers. I have what's called brood and a half. So I have the big brood box on the bottom, and then I put another super on top, and that creates a bigger space for the bees to basically produce more bees. And I'm going to work quickly now because I really need to minimize opening up this brood area because of all the baby bees. But basically what I'm looking for are capped brood, so baby bees that are pupating, looking for eggs, I'm looking for any kind of disease, and I'm looking for queen cells. If you look closely, there's a bee just emerging from its cell there. See it? Welcome to the world, little bee. I've just gone through the top box, so the super in the brood area, and found a couple of queen cups, but for the most part the bees are doing okay. I'm going to have a quick peek into the brood chamber, just to make sure that there's no queen cells in there, and then I'm going to put this all back together again. All put back together again. Bluebell is doing great. Now I need to look in on primrose, but you get the idea. Several years ago, I published a video on how gardeners can help bees. And that includes some information about things that you can plant and ways that you can support your bees without becoming a beekeeper yourself. Definitely go and have a watch. But if you want to take that next step to keeping bees, there are a few requirements. And I had a guest post over on my website years ago, a woman beekeeper in the US named Linda Tillman, and she actually puts out 3 main requirements which I support wholly. The first one is a curiosity for bees. So you need to be curious about how they work, their structure. You need to be interested in what they're doing. You can't just keep bees because you fancy the idea. They take a lot of looking after. So if you are curious about bees, you're going to learn about them. You're going to be reading books. You're going to be taking workshops and classes to help get you started. You're going to do your research before you start even thinking about ordering those bees, because you want to be a good beekeeper and you want to know what you're getting yourself into. I'd also really recommend that you join some beekeeping groups on Facebook. They are constantly filled with new information. I'm learning from them all the time. If you can find someone to mentor you, someone who keeps bees and that you can ring up if you have a question, that is even better. The second most important thing with getting started keeping honeybees is finding a place to put your hive. I have my 2 here at the allotment, and if you have an allotment, it may be that your association allows bees and you should get in touch with them. If not, you should try to find another place within 1.5 miles of where your garden is, because that is how far bees will travel from their hive at a maximum distance. So 1.5 miles in all directions around. So the closer you can put it to your garden, the better if you really want to benefit from pollination. The third most important factor with getting started keeping bees is money. Beekeeping is not cheap, especially when you first start up. So if you want to get a budget national hive and the entire kit, so your smoker, your outfits, your beekeeping suits, all of the essentials and accessories needed, you're gonna have to spend a good couple of £100 initially. And I'm sure the equivalent is pretty much the same in the United States and elsewhere, but you really do need to invest in good quality equipment to make sure that you're going to be protected and that your bees are going to be protected as well. I'm going to leave a lot more resources, so links to videos and books down in the video description if you want to learn more. And if you want to see more beekeeping videos from me, let me know as well, because I have produced quite a few, and I'll put a link down to the playlist in the video description as well if you want to watch them. And I want to create videos that you'll find interesting. So whether or not they're going to be beekeeping videos on their own or as part of the garden tours that I do each month, let me know what you think. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you have a little bit of inspiration to think about keeping bees in the very least, and I'll see you next week. Bye for now. One more thing before you go. If you enjoyed this video, you enjoy organic gardening, beekeeping, and making beauty products, make sure that you subscribe to Lovely Greens and click the little bell icon so that you know when new videos are out.